It's a good place to begin our discussion with political analyst Dick Morris, author of the book Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation. Dick, it's good to have you back here on America's Forum.
They asked Gandhi, what do you think of Western civilization? And he said, it would be nice.
It would be nice. One-liners aside, there's a serious situation afoot, and South Carolina's Lindsey Graham went a step further than did Richard Burr. Let's take a listen to what Senator Graham had to say.
If we wait 2 or 3 years to deal with these guys, the likelihood of getting attacked at home is great. President Obama's strategy is not going to degrade or destroy ISIL. It's going to allow this conflict to go further and longer. I've never been more worried about being hit at home because the president's worldview and strategy toward radical Islam is failing.
Your take on what Lindsey Graham said right there.
Well, I think he's right. I was reflecting on these poor New York City cops. They have de Blasio on the one hand and ISIS on the other, both gone after them. But not a good time to be a cop. I think that that Obama said all he needed to say by not going to Paris, by not sending Biden to Paris, by not sending Kerry to Paris, by telling Holder when he was in Paris to come home and not participate in the march. Every other world leader, including Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, showed up to link arms in that procession. I remember at the Kennedy funeral how proud I was that Charles de Gaulle was standing tall and erect right behind Jackie Kennedy at the funeral march. Jacques Chirac was the first foreign leader to come here after 9/11. Le Monde ran a headline, "We are all Americans today." And for Obama not to have gone and not to have sent anyone is outrageous. And it shows that this basically is a get lost, I got elected last time I ran, the congressional elections are over, don't bother me presidency.
So this is disengagement on his part. It was not a deliberate snubbing of the event?
Deliberate snubbing, and I can't be bothered. I think that it falls under a subset of a president who really basically at this point doesn't give a damn.
Well, you hate to reduce it to high school, but since we all went to high school, there was an affliction known as senioritis, where you just coast after you think you've gotten stuff. Is he basically in cruise control for the rest of his presidency?
Well, no. There are certain things that will bring him out of it, like the Republicans passing a bill for the good of the country. Then he's going to veto it and go crazy. But in terms of issues facing the country or national emergencies or things that you would think would normally bestir a president, lights are on, but nobody is home.
Now,
in fact, I even think there's a quantum of psychological resentment against the country for bothering him that much.
Is this president hostile to the notion of national security and any type of assertive foreign policy along traditional lines with traditional allies?
Yes, I think he is, reluctant and antithetical. I think his worldview is that the United States is too powerful, too much of a unipolar world, and the U.S. needs to be cut down to size, particularly when it relates to third world situations. So when he has to intervene, he does. But otherwise, he does nothing. And I think his view of Europe is a decidedly hostile view. I think he thinks Britain and France are the colonial powers that oppressed his father's native Africa. That's why he sent the bust of Churchill home, and it's why he didn't show up in Paris. When he was in Paris on a state visit, Hollande, I think it was, invited him to dinner at the Elysee Palace, the greatest honor you can have. He said no. He said that he and Michelle just wanted to eat out alone in Paris that night.
Ooh. 30 seconds remain, and I have said oftentimes, perhaps in joking, but there's truth in humor, imagine if this president treated the Russians as he does the Republicans, and you projected that kind of assertiveness on the world stage, but he just has no inclination whatsoever.
I think the query misunderstands the facts. I think that he sides more with the Russians than with the Europeans. I think his attitude is he, in common with Putin, wants to cut America down to size. Now, there are limits on what he can do, but ultimately he would like to enable the forces that are restricting America.
Hey, a reminder that you can get your copy of the best-selling book Power Grab from our friend Dick Morris by visiting the website powergrab411.com. And there is more with Mr. Morris in mere moments here on America's Forum. Nation, mindful of those concerns, Dick, let's talk about 2016. The Republican side this weekend talked that Romney will get back in. Will he?
Well, Romney is really in the same category, I think, as a third-party presidential candidate. A third-party candidate may want to run, but has to sit out there and wait in the wings and see if there's dissatisfaction with the existing field. Romney can't just jump in and run. He's got to wait to see what Bush does and to see what the others do. And then he could capitalize on dissatisfaction as they rip the hell out of each other, and then he could come up the middle. And I think that clearly Bush has stolen a march on Romney by getting into the field early. Bush and Romney are identical candidates. They both have the same legacy issue, the same legacy problem, and the whole bit. And they're center-right, the establishment darlings. If Bush screws up, and if people start attacking him over Common Core and immigration, and he's hurting and fails in the polling or fails in the early primaries, then I think you look at Romney to get in. Romney does not have to wait to get in because he already has an organization. He already has his money people. And he's doing just enough to keep their powder dry and to keep them away from the other candidates because he might get into it.
So he is, now this is interesting because what we've heard for years, really in the era of the Iowa caucus post Jimmy Carter in '76, is you get in early and you run. If you delay a campaign, it's going to be very difficult. But you say the dynamic is very different for Mitt Romney.
Yeah. With Giuliani, you have a good example of that dynamic at play. You wait, and then by the time you get to Florida, there's nobody still for you. They've all chosen another candidate. But I think that in Romney's case, he can avoid that because he's already won the nomination. He already has his people, and he's doing just enough to keep them all on the sidelines. But I think that there's a very good chance that Romney gets in, but only if Bush falters.
And the opportunity for Bush to falter is considerable, given a lot of Republicans' instinctive distrust of going back to the well for a prominent family. Can you really have three Presidents Bush in a country of over 300 million people?
And can you really have Bush against Clinton, two candidates who don't have their own last names?
Mindful of that, I'm just very curious. Back to the whole Romney question. There's been a lot of, I guess we'd call it voters' remorse in retrospect, seeing how things have turned out under Mr. Obama in the first year of his second term. Is remorse alone enough kind of a Romney resurgence based on that remorse?
No, I think it has to be accompanied by a failure of the current field. If people are scared of Ted Cruz, if he emerges as the right-wing Tea Party candidate, and people are scared that he'll be too much of a bomb thrower to get elected, and if Bush takes on a lot of hits because of immigration and Common Core and legacy and Bush the Third and all of that stuff, then the stage could be set for a Romney entry. That's why I say he's like a third-party candidate. In '92, Perot could get into the race, but Clinton and Bush had both to fail before he could really make his entry. And when Clinton succeeded at his convention, it retarded his reemergence. So I think that Romney is an event-driven candidate.
Well, there are plenty of events yet to come, many we can't even begin to understand. That's the reason we're here every day monitoring what's going on both nationally and internationally. But I am interested, even at this early time. Huckabee left his show on the Fox News channel. He's a guy who's already won once before. How do you assess Mike's opportunities in this upcoming campaign? Do you think he's going to run?
Well, certainly when you give up a gig at Fox, you're probably going to run. But I think that Huckabee his initial impact will be to knock Santorum in effect out of the race, because Santorum was kind of the Huckabee clone, but without the personality and any of the other positives in governor's record of Huckabee. The question really with Huckabee, which is on everybody's mind, is he's a wonderful guy. He's got tremendous integrity. He has an excellent record in Arkansas. but can he climb out of the evangelical ghetto? You know, the mainstream media won't treat him as a former governor, just a former preacher.
Point well taken. Remember,
10 years as governor,
That's
and
right.
they won't talk about it.
Dig Morris, he's written the book Power Grab. You can get yours at powergrab411.com.